Hello and welcome. This is ZapytajVC or Ask the VC, and we are Arek Hajduk and Michał Olszewski, both running this channel about VCs and startups in Poland, but not only. Right now, I guess you noticed that we switched to English. That's why it's that. That's because of our new series. It's called Roadtrip. And Roadtrip, it's about VCs and startups from surrounding countries, from the CEE. And last episode, you probably saw it, was about Czechia. And now we switch to another side of Poland. Now we enter Lithuania. Lithuania, it's in the northeast. It's a small country. It used to be a part of the Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth, and now it's kind of interesting for us. Why is that, Arek?
Well, there is a lot of stuff happening in Lithuania. We have two unicorns there. You probably know the names, Vinted and NordVPN or Nord Security. There is also some number of VC funds. We mentioned only the most notable ones on the slide, and one of them is in green, and there is no coincidence because...
Yeah, because that green VC fund, it's Contrarian Ventures, and Contrarian Ventures is the company where our guest Tomas Kemtys is a general partner in. So we would like to invite you all to the talk that we will have in a second with Tomas.
Yeah, thanks for having me, folks. Real pleasure. To be on your podcast. So quickly about myself, Tomas, I'm from Lithuania. I was born and raised here up until I was 18 when I left to study across US, UK, and Spanish universities. And then I spent 7 years of my career in London and New York, working in investment banking, corporate finance roles at a few mergers and acquisitions focused boutiques. Then I came back at the end of 2018 back to Vilnius, to Lithuania. When I joined my partner Rokas in doing the and building Contrarian Ventures fund, which is a climate-focused fund investing across Europe. So yeah, so that's briefly about myself.
Perfect, Tomas. We know that you represent fund that it's present in Poland, and we will talk about it later in details. But let's start with with some basic description of Lithuanian ecosystem. How big is it? What's special about it? What works? What not? What can you give us?
Yeah, I think I can give you a lot. I think the example or the contrasting views I give to some people is when I came back in 2018 back to Vilnius to join the fund. It was a very, very different ecosystem. It was sort of up and coming, but there's very little events happening. There's small ecosystem that was sort of ambitious and growing with some sparkles coming out of the dark, but it just wasn't much happening. And you fast forward 5-6 years later, the growth that has happened in the ecosystem has just been absolutely phenomenal. I think Estonia was always, or for many years, an example, an early leader in the Baltics, with the Skype folks, with TransferWise folks, with Bolt folks, and other folks building in this space. And Lithuania was always catching up a bit. But I think the time has come that I believe, really caught up, and in some places even overtook the Estonian startup ecosystem, which is, again, both of these countries are super impressive in terms of sort of unicorns per capita stats, or folks working in the startup ecosystem per capita stats, comparing to all the Western countries and other countries in Europe. So ecosystem has grown a lot. It means it's got more complicated. It got much more sophisticated. It's going also over the cycles where some founders cash out and they go do other things. They go maybe create other startups. Maybe they start investing in a fund perspective, or as angels, they go coach other people. And this ecosystem is growing very, very fast over the last years. We've seen huge successes like Vinted, NordVPN or the broader Tesonet group that raised hundreds of millions at unicorn valuations, and other folks that I will talk about more with you folks. But the growth has been impressive. There's tens of thousands of people working in the ecosystem. I think it's really put us on the map. Lithuania, I would say, with my talks with investors, because we're a pan-European investor. I sit here personally in Vilnius, but also have offices in Europe, and we talk a lot with investors across Western Europe and US. And I think 4 years ago, it was still sort of the conversation I was having is like, hey, Tom, love to learn more about the Baltics, love to learn more about the Lithuanian ecosystem. Who should I speak to? Introduce me to this guy or that lady, and I'll come one day and do like an event, and I want to explore this. Sort of like, oh, hey, I heard there's something nice happening. I should come maybe, in the 2 quarters that I haven't gonna have 2 days that I can, skip scouting my UK, French, or German ecosystem. I can come to Lithuania sort of as a low probability, low effort type of trip. I think that completely switched the last 4 years. If you fast forward now, I think all the key founders are in our ecosystem are WhatsApp away from top general partners or top VC funds, growth funds, private equity funds in US and in Europe. They come here all the time. They do events, they join events, they do sort of small private dinners with the people. It's as on the radar as it can be, I think.
So what happened really? Because you said there's a huge change, and you see much difference.
What happened is the ecosystem matured. They matured through many ways. People grew up. They learned at Vinted. They learned at Tesonet. They learned at Kilo Health, at PVKs. They raise hundreds of millions. There's people that help these companies raise hundreds of millions. There's people that suddenly know all of these key players that they can easily call them, introduce them to the peers that they're having dinner with in a cafe in Vilnius. And it sort of just builds up, and this network effects just help. We have super tight ecosystem. Some call it sort of tech mafia, like it was Skype mafia or Bolt Mafia or N26 Mafia, Revolut Mafia. In other places now we have sort of Tesonet Mafia and Vinted and so on. People really spinning out and building tons of other startups and really helping each other out. We do various events like founder summits where sort of top 50, 60 people gather up. They share knowledge, they share contacts, and so on. So this sort of flywheel effect just really helped. People saw you can make money, you can make impact in the spaces. This business has got really big. Vinted is probably around, I don't know, 3,000 people plus. Most of them are in Lithuania. So people want to work here, want to learn, and they do so. And then it just takes a bit more time or effort, but the flywheel is spinning super fast, and that's mainly due to the success of a few key players that happened in the last 5 years.
You mentioned map being on the map, and like this map thing is kind of important because Lithuania is squeezed between Poland, which is kind of like a huge market, right? With also a few successes in tech, and then there's Estonia, which is a leader. We don't about Latvia too much today, but there's Estonia on the other side, right? So we probably compare your startups that come out of your local ecosystem, and are there better than those in neighboring countries, or worse, or how it's progressing?
So Latvia I can speak less about. I think it's out of the 3 Baltic countries has been the slowest moving in terms of startup ecosystem. There's Printify, Printful, and a few others, but it's just always been sort of the last third for probably multiple, maybe structural, fundamental reasons. Estonia has been fantastic for many years now. They've been the most innovative, the most digital, one of the most digital countries in Europe, if not the most digital country in Europe. You can set up a company there in a couple of minutes, even if you don't reside there. So we learned a lot. I think the economic growth of the country, due to some fiscal monetary policies have slowed down the last few years, so that impacted a few things here and there. But still, as you've probably seen, Bolt is going to IPO soon, maybe next year. That's going to be a massive event for the whole ecosystem, the whole Central Eastern Europe probably. So Estonia has been fantastic, super fast moving. Lithuania, I told you about. I think everyone's also super close, super fast moving. They're very resourceful, very aggressive. In terms of building and moving fast to the US markets or larger European markets. People love bootstrapping. We loved bootstrapping for a long time now, and a lot of the great startups like Tesonet has been built on bootstrap budgets, taking no outside investors up until they were $1 billion plus company, which is as impressive as it can get on the global scale. Poland, for me, I know obviously less about, and probably less than you folks. But Poland is a different beast. You know, it's a very large country, almost 40 million people. We have 2.5 in Lithuania, maybe 1.3, 1.4 in Estonia. So that's one town in Poland.
So like Warsaw region for us.
Yeah, it's a Warsaw region. But these countries have been very nimble. Obviously, Poland also been on the radar recently. For me, at least, personal life, see Poland, for me, 11 Labs jumps in front of tech successes. Allegro, been a big player for a very long time. I think the problem with Poland, in my opinion, that I've been sharing with a lot of co-investors in Poland, as we spend a lot of time there, is the country's big enough not to go outside of its borders. When you have 40 million people, you can make a great business. You can sell to a lot of audiences. You can do many things, and you can make a good living. So that's a problem I would see sometimes with Polish startups. When I talk to the folks and their ambition, we be like, look, we want to be X for Poland or Y for Poland, because it's big enough. I don't, there's someone in Germany doing this and they're doing a great job, but I'll do Poland. Maybe I'll add on Czech Republic or Croatia, and then it'll be a big business sort of for VC funds like ours. When we're looking for 100x type of return, it's still, ambition is a bit too small. So it's, so the countrysides of this size is both a blessing and a curse. US is big enough to build huge decacorns. Poland, unfortunately, I think is too small to do that.
So we will come back probably to this question of why Lithuanian unicorns are so great, but I would like to ask you one more thing about you told about ecosystem growth, yeah. And you never mentioned source of VC funding, right? And I know like all Central European countries or Central and Eastern Europe, that there is a huge role of public funding in Lithuania, isn't it? So how does it play out, in this growth, whether it helps or not?
Yeah, no, that's correct. I think unfortunately a lot of European funds have been have grown on public money. We're talking, European Investment Fund that has programs all over Europe. We have talking BPI in France and British Business Mag in UK and all the other sovereign wealth funds and public programs. So unfortunately, we don't have yet, but it's changing, and I hope it's going to change faster, the robust pension funds that can invest in VCs, and they do invest in VCs and allocate substantial amounts of money like they do in the US. So I hope that's changing, and it's changing a bit at least in some countries. Lithuania is no different. We still have extremely little funding in terms of private money or non-public money. I think by far the main pocket is public money from a place called the national, I'm not even sure what you call it, National Development Bank or this type of governance structure that's now called ILTE, that's used to be known as Invega, and there are these agency equivalents in all the Baltic countries. So since the very first day, via the European broader public funding initiatives like Jeremiah and other ones, they've been funding the creation of the venture capital ecosystem here, which has been great. To be honest, you got to start somewhere, and the EIFs of the world will always be the backstop and the first investor who will have the courage to go and do this and really help and foster ecosystem. As soon as it grows, that there's enough there's enough private money coming in. The goal of these programs is for them to sort of go back into the shadows and let the private money really be the driver of the growth of these VC funds. So it's getting there. More and more family offices, high net worth individuals, unicorn founders, tech founders are coming to the system. Some banks are coming to the system, hopefully pension funds and some corporates. It's still very low in terms of what you need. And Lithuania and the other Baltic countries still need more funding for VCs, especially I think in the early stages, to fund those super risky early bets across all the verticals, to be honest, both deep tech, software, and all the verticals. So these programs are happening still. More money is coming, but more has to come.
And that ecosystem that exists right now in Lithuania, I know nothing about it. It would be hard for me to name another VC fund from Lithuania. Sorry, but are those funds that were created thanks to public money also? Are that funds like cooperative or really competitive to each other? How's the competition between the VC funds in Lithuanian ones?
No, great question.
Or?
Great question. So I'll give you the ecosystem is not so deep yet. There's a few names. So there's Practa Capital. One of the main, I think, OGs, as we call them, in the space that are investing in so-called Baltic diaspora, which is all the Baltic funds, all the Baltic countries, plus Baltic founders maybe based out of Berlin or UK or elsewhere. But they mainly focus on Baltic headquartered companies. So they're great. They've been around for a long time, 10 years plus, have multiple funds. They're generalist investor. Most of the investors are very generalist. We are the only ones that are climate investors and invest all across Europe. Other names are First Pick, who are super early stage, sort of accelerator / fund. There's Iron Wolf Capital, Open Circle Capital. There's Scale Wolf, a bit of a defense stuff. There's Business Angel Networks, Business Angels Funds, and a few other names that are probably escaping my mind, but these are sort of the big players. And there's very few of them. Most of them do generalist stuff. Some maybe more deep techy than others, and all of them scout across the Baltics. Now, having said that, they do compete. They compete a bit against each other, but they mostly compete against other funds. That, as I said, that this system is the ecosystem is extremely visible. People know what's happening. They come here, they spend time. Bunch of Polish funds are here all the time. A big kudos to the folks at Innovo VC, who've been very active, been winning fantastic deals here, being super competitive, super smart about how they win the founders, how they harvest them, how they see them before anyone else. So big kudos to them. Market One Capital, our friends that we just co-invested with, also they're great. They invested in great founders. They know the ecosystem, they know the main folks. So, and many others from the Polish ecosystem. And then obviously the further you go in Europe, we got everyone coming in. We recently had Index Ventures invest in Nexus AI. We had Axel historically invest in Vinted. We had Warburg Pincus from New York. We had all these sorts of funds, here. So on a level where you have great founders, maybe repeat founders, good pedigree, or you have someone with great metrics already showing off from the very inception, you're gonna have everyone flying in here competing. It's the same as Stockholm, Vilnius, Dublin, London. The visibility these days for these founders just changed dramatically over the last 5 to 10 years. You see stuff now. I see stuff. We use software. We have our data scientists here. So you see stuff. So it's harder to hide. It's harder to keep the moat or advantage of just being here local and sort of seeing stuff that no one else is seeing.
Right. So maybe let's switch to startups and to success stories. You mentioned Vinted, you mentioned NordVPN. Those are two totally different stories, right? One is venture funded, like in many rounds, and the other one is a bootstrap company. but they both, became unicorns. And when I was researching for this episode, one theme that popped up was that in Lithuania is there is no way, like you have to do a very quick product to fit market, right? And product to market fit. And is that so? And how it played out with Vinted and NordVPN in their ways of success?
Yeah, they very different indeed. But one common theme across them that it took them some time. It wasn't a overnight success, sort of, as they say, 10 years overnight success. NordVPN or testnet group now has been bootstrapped up until they were maybe $1.5 billion of value. So it's just what it means to the ecosystem, to the founders, has been obviously phenomenal. On the flip side, none of the VCs in Lithuania have invested in them since the beginning. So sort of you missing out on the biggest successes by far. No one, I think there's no one in Vinted that invested in early stages, so I'm pretty sure there's no one. So it's a pity, but obviously Vinted has been created quite a while ago. So it's a big, large company by now. Both of these companies went abroad or went to the international market sort of probably on the day one or on the very, very early inception of the companies. Vinted was called a bit differently. It was called manodrabužiai.lt, which is sort of my clothes.lt, which was a sort of lower tech type of platform 10 plus years ago. And then they had a story with Mantas Mikuckas joining them, who was the founder, one of the co-founders of Praktika Capital back in the day. And when he saw the company and he joined the other co-founders, then they went for the massive roller coaster where it was sort of from all great to being almost dead and having a couple of months of cash runway. And then the current CEO, Tomas Kemtys, has joined them and who's done a lot for the ecosystem. So, so it's been growing. It hasn't been a straight line. If you look from now to there, it's been a straight line. But if you zoom in, it's been a massive roller coaster. For Tesonet Group, they've been just innovating. They've been trying hundreds of things. Some worked, some hasn't worked. But they found products, and now it's just spinning out product after product. They call themselves an incubator of ideas. They spun out Nexus.ai, an AI orchestration tool that raised tens of millions from top investors like Index Ventures very, very recently. They buying basketball clubs in London. They just being an absolute machine, sort of ecosystem of their own with thousands of people there. So very, very different stories, but I can tell you that founders of these companies talk every day. They help the ecosystem. They have phenomenal values, and they do phenomenal things even outside of their businesses, which we can talk about later.
Okay, how size of Lithuania helps in those in those conversations? Because you mention it all the time. That the network is tight and people are meeting, and Michał mentioned that it's almost like Warsaw. Is it that concentration and the size boost the chances of the serendipity and meetings, etc.?
I don't know if that's the main driver of the success. It definitely helps. I think what's real important with these meetings is maybe not always sort of real output, but it's more of these sort of esoteric things like inspiration. It really inspires to listen to these stories because these folks that are here, we're classmates of someone, and this ecosystem is young, so the founders are still pretty young. These founders have been classmates or they played basketball together in their childhood, and suddenly this guy is running a $4 billion business just next to you. So, and the folks are giving it back to the community, so it feels good to listen to them. It feels like people can achieve it. They're very encouraging. They invest back into the ecosystem. They do accelerators. There's now spaces called as Base Space, for example, which big shout out to the folks who are really one of those so-called maybe hacker houses that are becoming more popular in Europe. They're in Sweden, they're in Paris, in London, that we bring 17, 19, 20-year-olds here. They coding, they creating 24/7. They're sleeping on the mattresses in these spaces. They all chat to each other. They pitch each other ideas, and that's just phenomenal sort of flywheel that is gonna spun out more and more stuff. And they get inspired by the guys. They get inspired by Vinted, by Tesonet, they get inspired by Sintra AI, which is sort of a large success in terms of at least recent headlines that they managed to do. So these things inspire people. Lithuania in general is super, super small. As I said, only more than 2 million people, unfortunately. And we need to hopefully to get bigger in terms of the demographics of the next years. And I'm always encouraging that. So kind of from day one, you won't be able to make it if you just sell to this market. Lithuania is a good hotbed sort of trying things out, but all the people have to go to US to sell, to UK to sell, to the larger European country to sell. So you always have this mindset of, hey, look, okay, I'm gonna do it, but I gotta sell to US now. So you don't start by selling to a neighbor here or to a Vilnius audience and stuff. So that helps. I would say that really helps with the mindset, because you're not afraid to go outside of the world. Maybe folks in Poland been selling in Polish market for 3 years, and for them going to US, it's such an unnatural thing, because you sort of didn't think you needed to do it. But for the guys out here, it's just very, very natural. Everyone is doing that, so people also can share their learnings.
You mentioned a few times the word mafia, and so you already see the effect of people that joined, I don't know, Vinted on the early moments, just going back to the community and building new successful startups already. It's happening, right?
Yeah, massive. I think there's been a recent mapping by this great, fantastic newsletter called Tech Philomaths that they mapped Kilo Health, Vinted, Tesonet, and we have, I don't know, 50 plus, 70 plus type of startups spinning out by the guys, more and more and more. So same happened in Estonia, which a lot of the nowadays famous unicorns are out of Skype. I'm pretty sure this is going to happen in Lithuania. It's already happening. So that's been super encouraging.
So I have a question regarding your investments outside of Lithuania, probably. Yes. But looking at the way the growth is happening as you described, right? You have to go international from day one. You have to be ambitious, fast, nimble, etc., etc. This is the benchmark for all your investments.
For us as a fund, yes. As Contrarian Ventures, absolutely, yes. I would say climate tech in the Baltics is not a super big theme, and naturally there's very few startups building that space. The largest VC markets naturally in Europe are always been UK, France, and Germany. So we see most of the folks building there. Nordics are very important as well, other hubs such as Switzerland, given the deep tech knowledge. So for us, yes, every single investment has to be a fund returner at least. So that really determines the ambition that you're looking for in the founders.
So we usually have this more neutral background in our recordings, but today there's a lot of green leaves around us, and this is like directly connected to Contrarian, because you're focused on just one specific vertical, right? Could you tell us more about it and why?
We've been focused on the vertical since 2017-18 when we started the first fund. I would say the vertical names that the rest of the world defines them has been changing. At first it was sort of energy tech, then clean tech, then climate tech. Nowadays probably people like to call themselves more like energy/resiliency security type of thematic. So this means for us still many topics, from energy to transportation, mobility to industry to data centers and compute, robotics, and many other subcategories, sort of with the lens of the view that this doesn't destroy the planet, but hopefully it helps the planet in many ways, whether that's sort of sustainability type of angle, or that's efficiency type of angle in industrial manufacturing, or even in AI, or that's just doing things better for the planet. We're sort of not dead set on any CO2 measures or quantifying every single piece, or dead set on like ESG thematic. We like those things, and we have to do some stuff related to that, but we look at many angles on how to make the world better, and that could mean investing in robotics, investing in some specific AI investment, let's say AI for industrial manufacturing efficiency, which has been a super hot topic, to obviously the more simple stuff, such as solar, wind, batteries. Maybe it's not so simple, but pockets there. I would say we mostly historically been investing in more of a software angle rather than hardware, but also made some hardware investment, and we still look for them. Yeah, and we've been doing it stuff that's early. We like pre-seed, seed mostly. When the founders come, they're starting it up. They have some ideas, maybe some traction, maybe some signals towards the product market fit, and then we take that risk. So it's a huge risk, hopefully huge reward type of portfolio.
Okay, so when probably some Polish founders are listening right now, and then they're doing something in climate tech, or broader, as you mentioned, what is the way of getting your attention?
Great question. And I do spend a lot of time in Poland. We love the market. We have a venture partner there, and I scout the market. Way to get our attention is to have a stellar team, first of all, build something innovative, really know what your competitors are doing in terms of, you have to know what's out there. Don't start doing the same thing that 15 other folks are building unless you're gonna do it better. Have big ambitions, be aggressive in how you achieve your goals, and do something that's relevant now. I think that the topics in our space have been shifting a lot. Some stuff is hot and makes sense and can make money out there. Some stuff is sort of dead. People tried it, it doesn't work, it doesn't make money, doesn't make sense to do it, and some people still want to build it that way because they have some sort of opinions about it. So be relevant and be up to date on what's happening in there. I think it's a great time and a great space to build.
So you mentioned that you spend a lot of time in Poland and scouting Polish startups. Does it mean that we'll see some investments from you in Polish startups, and as a lead investor, co-investor?
Yeah, no, great. To start with, Poland's been awesome. We've been lucky to have an investor, PFR, as one of our anchor investors in the fund 2 that we raised, a 100 million fund. So on the back of that, we started spending more time in Poland, and we even hired a venture partner, Eric, who is there scouting for us all the time, and I'm on the ground a lot. And we actually we co-led a Polish deal called Sunstorm, together with friends from Market One Capital and Movens Capital, that I'm sure a lot of your viewers, readers, listeners will know. It's our first deal, hopefully not the last. We scouted the market very deeply the last 3 years. This is the team that we saw that we absolutely fell in love. It took some time to invest in them. And yeah, we announced it actually last week. So it's been very, very fresh, and this podcast comes very timely. I'm happy to ramp up the support for them during this.
It's a happy coincidence. Can you tell us more about what drove you? You felt love with the team, but that's a B2B marketplace, as far as I understand it. What was the main thing that caught your attention and you decided, you know?
Yeah, no, great question. We like marketplaces a lot, even though we haven't invested that much in B2B marketplaces. But when we spoke to Market One Capital, who are the marketplace experts, one of the best in the world, together with a few other names, we really started understanding it much better. These guys come with great traction, already have 100 million of GMV, so-called gross merchandise value of products sold via the platform, of solar equipment products, whether that's solar panels or batteries or inverters. They want to expand into new categories. They've been building great product. They've been moving super fast, expanding their gross margins. And then, so we got great product, great traction, and we have a great team. And the team is a couple of co-founders. Agata comes from McKinsey background and startup backgrounds in Booksy. Bartosz comes from a solar equipment distributor background from a company that has been on the list of 1,000 fastest growing Financial Times startups, so-called Melno Electric, that probably, again, a lot of the listeners know about it. So he has been through the space for many years. So we thought that with that combo, we can't miss. And we didn't miss the deal. So we're very happy to have done it.
So you named a few other VC firms, Polish ones that co-invest with you, and how it happened? Like they invited you, you invited them. What's the story?
It was independent. We knew them because I've been scouting the market a lot. They've been obviously in the market a lot as well. So we, as it often happens in those, there's probably 10, 20, 30 funds they're speaking to, the founders, I mean. Then stuff gets serious, and then you start scouting the market, who else, sort of to get the intel, who else is talking. We learned that Market One is also in deep talks with the marketplace, which we're not surprised at all. And then
that's their specialty, right?
That's their specialty. We spoke at the conference on the side of it, and then we said, look, we'd love to work with you guys. We sort of bring a bit more on the knowledge on the industry and climate angle and our network in this space. They know the marketplaces in and out, sort of the mechanics of how it works, how it can get better. And we thought that's a cool combo. And then Movens Capital also joined us, which is also nice. And we have some international investors such as FG Labs, another very well-known marketplace investor out of the US. So pretty cool cap table.
It's when you compare, because you mentioned one investment and you mentioned that you're scouting the market, so you talk to probably more founders, right? Can you name, you know, what was the mistakes, probably, because this is the good word. What was the mistakes?
What's the worst stuff that you
saw? The founders that
in Poland.
No, not the worst stuff, but the mistakes that founders made that, you know, they didn't get to the investment proposal stage.
You guys talking in general in
Poland?
In Poland.
Well,
okay.
In Poland, probably. Yeah, in Poland, because that's, you know, we want to learn, you know, what works in other countries. But as you said,
most of our viewers are Polish.
40 million people country, and 40 million people that decides, you know, on some pattern. Yeah. So, you know.
No, awesome question. I wanted to speak to you about this for sure. And I can only speak about the more sort of climate tech, energy type of founder. So, as I said in the very beginning, the main problem I've seen, and I told this to our LP, PFR, and all the other co-investors and investors I know, sort of, is really the level of ambition of expanding outside of it. So sort of too narrow-minded ambition, and also a lot of copycat activity in terms of, not in a super negative way, but more like, hey, I read about this. I'll give a bad example, but like carbon accounting platform in Germany that raised that much money. I saw they're not in Poland, they're not serving any clients. Let me build this, and why don't you fund me? And I'm gonna promise you to build out the market in Poland, plus maybe go to a few Central Eastern European countries that are small, and that's gonna be it, sort of. So I asked them, like, what? But I can invest, and I should be investing in the absolute best founders that are based out of the whole Europe that can take the whole market. Why should I invest in you guys with such a low level of ambition? And I know it's going to be much harder to do what you say you want to achieve, and the targets you're giving me are so low. that it really doesn't inspire me to back you and even take the next call or the next meeting. So I think that has been the most, I would say, negative popular thematic that I've seen over the last 3 years across Polish ecosystem in our space. I think we haven't met like stellar teams also that would have a great pedigree, would be ambitious enough to go and sort of take it and win the markets. And I think, yeah, I'm underestimating the international competition also. So not being aware of it as much as folks should be.
Okay, so sorry for interrupting, but you mentioned pedigree. I think it was second time, but what do you mean by great pedigree? Is it a great university, or is it a startup that went down, or is it working in investment banking in London? What's the background that you look for?
So there are obviously classic ways how people looked at it, and now stuff maybe is changing and it's going back. You always had the top universities as sort of an indication that someone is going to be successful in something that they're going to decide to do with their lives. So it's obviously just a very small part of it. Just because you went to Cambridge or Stanford doesn't mean that you're going to be the best. But I would say people from technical backgrounds, from with good education, and people, but more so than that, is really people that proved something, that they're great at something in life or over the course of their lives. That, does that mean sports? Does that mean education? Does that mean job, being employed by someone and being fantastic at that role? And you get to learn that during interviews with these people, and you get to learn more on that during the reference calls on these people. So I would say I've missed that so far. In my space, I'm not talking general about the Polish ecosystem. It's just really people that decide to build in this space. I would say that the founding teams were a bit incomplete, maybe too small or too few skill sets that we would look for, too little great experience, maybe experience in some great companies outside of Poland, for a few years, and coming back to build there and getting great group of people together. So that's for me what is pedigree. It's not a one thing.
And I would like to understand your investment thesis a little bit better, because you focus on climate tech and everything related. Yeah. What's really important for you? The amount of money that you can generate because of investment, but there's also that climate angle, right? You mentioned that you're not really measuring it, but how you measure that climate impact thing, and how important is it for you, and why?
Yeah, it's important. Like the first priority is for us to make money to our investors, so-called limited partners, to make them happy, to make good returns. Sort of that's a overarching topic and theme across our firm. And I would say we probably have
you're pretty good at it, right? You returned your first fund.
We had success with the fund one that we returned more than 1x, almost 1.5x, so-called DPI, which is distributed cash, in our small 12.5 million fund one. And hopefully it's going to be 3, 5, 7x fund in the future. So we're very excited about it. I think one of the few, maybe there's only a few funds globally in climate space that have returned full fund. Obviously it's a small fund, so it's easier for me to talk than to someone who raised $1 billion. But the second fund we raised is a much larger $100 million type of fund. So we'll see how we do with that. Hopefully we're going to do great as well. Sorry, actually, I forgot the question.
So the question was about this, climate impact. Is it really important, or is it just a decoration or whatever? Yeah,
no, it's not just a decoration. We have so-called impact KPIs where we measure every single startup that we invest in. We set impact KPIs that are mostly business-related KPIs that translate super well into the impact KPIs. So let's say how many solar panels have been sold via Sunstar Marketplace. If then that number is increasing every single year, it means the business is doing well, but it means also they make and do a lot of impact. So we measure those things. That's a big part of our fund as well. So every investment we do, we measure that, we make sure we calculate it, and there's enough of it. But there's always, on the back of that, we look at the startups. Look, it has to make money, it has to be a fund returner, has to have the potential to be a fund returner, has to make our LPs happy. So that's the overarching and main driving force of it.
When we were researching before the interview, we found out that probably the star in your portfolio, it's a PV case, right?
Yeah.
They were really good in those climate-related KPIs, or it was a great business to invest in. Can you tell us more about it?
When the company grows, then everything goes well. It's impactful in many ways, financially, climate-wise. Everything goes great. When businesses struggle, then you don't make money. There's no impact, nothing. So with PVKs, it's a former. It's been and it's going great. We invested in them with an idea at this as pre-seed stage as it gets, at very little valuation, back in sort of 2018, when the times have been very different.
So it was just an idea at that stage, right?
Yeah, it was just an idea. It was founders. They're fantastic. They had great experience, great pedigree in that market. They knew what they were doing, and they decided, cool, let's build it. If we got support, if we got people who believe in us and they sort of push us to do this, then we should do it, and they took the step. It's been fantastic to see. They've been also one of the key drivers of the ecosystem in terms of how they build businesses. They have offices all over Europe, a big office in Vilnius, and we're super grateful. It's been a huge success for us as well, and we've been lucky to invest in that. It's a Lithuanian company. It's one of the top companies in climate tech in Europe. We invested in them. Practica Capital invested in them. So it also brings back a lot back into the ecosystem of Lithuania. So it's been a win-win-win across all the nuances.
Okay, Tomas, I would like to ask you, a bit wider now. You are present in Poland. You have a public investor on board. You have a great knowledge of Lithuania ecosystem. What works best in Lithuania and could be implemented in Poland and vice versa. How we can make CE great again, yeah. But just using the best out of the countries.
Yeah, obviously, I'm want to pretend I'm the best to speak about the Poland market. So full respect to people who spend way more time there than I do, and it's a fantastic market. You got 11 labs, you got many other startups have been doing super well. What can be better is a $1 million question. I think first, probably a tighter ecosystem there, people being a bit more open to speak to each other, to spend time together. You obviously, that would be amazing to have hubs like 11 labs stay in Poland. As far as I know, probably you have maybe a few people, but main offices seem to be outside, or the founders outside. So I hope there's a lot of transfer of knowledge of that success happening back and being funneled to the Polish ecosystem. Poland's been interesting for me, looking at it sort of in terms of how many funds there are, or they have been set up, which I think is in the hundreds of VC funds, and a lot of them, as far as I know, are not active anymore. Yeah. So sort of they got the funding. I guess they tried, and nothing worked out, and that's it. They went to do something else. So, which is a pity. You obviously don't need hundreds of funds, but I think Poland would benefit from more funds with really great general partners, who built their businesses, who do some fantastic operational stuff, who know the market super well, and sort of can inspire people and really back great teams, and maybe incubate them, and do venture studios and show them how it's done, and so on. I think more and more stuff is happening. You have great VC funds. I have huge respect for them. I think more of that stuff can be same in Lithuania. Honestly, we need more money. We need more capital. We need more brave, courageous funds to back great ideas.
I think we wanted to ask you, what's the best advice you could give to startups applying to you? But I think that you answered this already like multiple times. It was the ambition thing, having a great team and not being just a simple copycat, right?
Yeah.
I don't know what's else. Is there anything else that you would advise?
Yeah, it's for us. It's all about the energy, and energy, not the kilowatts of energy, but of energy of people. We jump on. We do. I don't know. Every person does 10+ calls every week with new startups. We track so many of them. We use, as I said, software. We see thousands of startups every year, and then it's just that. And often these ideas, we care about them, what they build, but we care more about the people. When people show up with huge energy, sort of huge positivity, huge ambition, you just sense it, and you just feel very, very different. You know they're gonna be relentless. It's gonna be super tough, and they're gonna gonna bang the head through the wall to achieve something. So, for me personally, this energy levels are extremely important, and it cannot be faked. It has to be real. You sometimes don't see it, or people got very good during COVID of faking it via cameras, but then you have to meet them in person. Before we invest, we always fly and meet people in person. We don't do checks without seeing the people, and we've made some mistakes doing that stuff without seeing people, and then you meet them in real life when the shit hits the fan, and you're like, oh man, I would have never backed them if I spent enough time with them. It's easy to say now. So I have this rule at the fund to do this. So yeah, energy for me is number one. And it doesn't come. You can't fake it. It comes naturally if you.
Yeah. So one coffee before meeting is not enough.
Yeah, probably it can help for that meeting.
All right. We have this tradition that at the end of our talks with the VCs, we ask them. All of them are getting the same 3 questions, and it's always a surprise for them, especially that we require a simple, straightforward answer. So this is the quest for you right now. So first question. What's your unique value as a VC? What's different about you? Why startups should select you?
In our space and climate space, we've been around for 7-8 years. One of the OGs, I believe, in this early stage investing ecosystem. We have a huge network. We have a huge platform of all of our events that we do, but we haven't spoken at all, and which is a big piece of us, which is Climate 50, Climate Brick, Energy Tech Summit, a huge conference. We do 1,000+ people. So via network, we can bring a lot. I think we bring a lot in terms of fundraising help, in terms of strategic help, in terms of network help. I think these are the key real things without BSing about other stuff.
Okay, second one, Arek.
Nice. Well, what about your anti-portfolio? The best investors have great portfolios, anti-portfolios. Yeah. What about you?
We have a lot. We have it written out. We have a lot of names, which some stuff changes. Some of those names that you thought are fantastic and you missed, suddenly they're not doing so well anymore, so you kind of feel a bit better about yourself. But there's still some stuff that we missed, and we had some great names. We're happy to have seen them. We're not happy to not have done them, but you go and you learn. And I think everyone has to have this anti-portfolio. I mean, if you the best funds, Bouldertons of the world, everyone has it. So you have to have this. Everyone has to have it.
Do you have any unicorn in anti-portfolio?
I don't think so. No, I don't think we have unicorns there yet. Yeah.
Yet. All right. The last one. Yep. You're gonna like it, and I love it. It's my favorite question, and this time it's like perfectly fits, because this is a question about contrarianism.
Yeah.
What's the thing that you personally, as a person, as Tomas, you believe that that comes, that no one else around believes in?
It doesn't have to be about investing.
About anything.
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think Peter Thiel asks this a lot, and I asked this even to some of my interviewees when I do it, and very few people reply to it.
So you must be prepared, right?
I am not prepared. I've been thinking about this as well, and it's a super hard question actually, to be sort of non-consensus. I think AI. I think on AI, obviously everyone thinks about AI a lot, and everyone should. It's been a contrarian thought 3 months ago. Probably it's not anymore. But I think in a lot of places AI is getting overestimated on what it can achieve and how fast people will adapt to it. You know, I've been seeing a super fast pickup of sort of consumer-facing apps such as ChatGPT and Gemini and others. But I think adaptability to it and the ROI in real businesses will be much harder to achieve than people think and believe and hope, based on public market valuations of a lot of these companies. And that's based on our experience, and based on our portfolio experience and startup experience that we look at. Again, it's probably not contrarian view anymore, because I think some people in the market have been realizing that recently. But as of 3 months ago, I think that was a contrarian.
But I think it's a pretty nice thing, because we can check it, pretty soon and see if
we can. We can.
This is not, one of those very philosophical, I don't know, ones where no one knows.
Yeah.
I know. I think it's a good answer, but because you invited us for 1 hour of additional talking, about it, because there are so many things for and against that works perfectly.
So we will have to go back to this in the future and ask you again.
Yeah.
Yeah. Tomas, that was a great conversation. Thank you for sharing your insights into Lithuania and Baltics. I think
and the Poland in a way also,
personally,
right? Through your eyes.
Better. Yeah. So thank you for that, and good luck in finding great deals in Poland. I guess, and hopefully we will get you on our podcast again with lessons learned after investing in unicorn in Poland.
We can schedule a call already, put in our calendars. I don't know, give us 5 years, 7 years. So I need to call Sun Store, guys. When is the date? Yeah, but I hope so. That'd be awesome for everyone. Yeah.
Okay, we will invite PFR then. Probably they will be super happy.
They'll be very happy. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Perfect.
Thank you, guys.